When pain strikes from someone you care for, especially a woman, the instinct is to strike back. But what if the true power lies not in retaliation, but in understanding? When hurt by someone's actions, particularly when that someone is a woman, the impulse to retaliate, to confuse them, or to inflict reciprocal pain can be strong. However, succumbing to this impulse rarely leads to a positive resolution. Instead, it often escalates the conflict, deepens the hurt, and erodes the foundation of any relationship. Therefore, the first and most crucial step is to prioritize healthy communication. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending the hurt doesn't exist. It's about channeling your emotions into a constructive dialogue that fosters understanding and potential resolution. Healthy communication begins with a conscious effort to shift your focus from blame to expression. Instead of accusing or attacking, use I statements to articulate how the other person's actions affected you. This subtle shift in language can dramatically alter the tone of the conversation. For example, instead of saying, "You always disregard my feelings," try, "I felt disregarded when you said," specific statement. This approach allows you to express your pain without placing the other person on the defensive, making them more receptive to your perspective. Furthermore, healthy communication requires clarity and specificity. Avoid generalizations or vague accusations that can lead to misinterpretations. Instead, pinpoint the specific actions or words that caused you pain. This allows the other person to understand precisely what triggered your reaction, making it easier for them to acknowledge their behavior and consider its impact. It also allows you to focus the conversation on a solvable problem, rather than a broad, insurmountable character flaw. Active listening is another essential component of healthy communication. This means paying close attention to what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally. It involves putting aside your own agenda and genuinely trying to understand their perspective. Ask clarifying questions to ensure you're grasping their meaning, and resist the urge to interrupt or formulate counterarguments while they're speaking. Demonstrating genuine interest in their viewpoint can create a safe space for open and honest dialogue. It's also important to remember that healthy communication is not about winning or proving a point. It's about fostering mutual understanding and finding a way to move forward. This may involve acknowledging your own role in the conflict, even if you feel you were primarily wronged. It requires a willingness to compromise and find solutions that address both parties' needs. When expressing your feelings, be mindful of your tone and body language. Avoid using accusatory or aggressive language, and maintain a calm and respectful demeanor. Remember that your goal is to communicate your pain, not to inflict pain on the other person. This requires emotional maturity and self-control, especially when you're feeling hurt or angry. Finally, healthy communication involves setting clear boundaries. This means articulating what behaviors are unacceptable to you and what consequences will follow if those boundaries are violated. It's important to be firm and consistent in enforcing your boundaries, as this demonstrates that you value yourself and your well-being. By prioritizing healthy communication, you can transform a potentially destructive conflict into an opportunity for growth and understanding, ultimately strengthening your relationship and promoting mutual respect. Prioritizing emotional regulation is paramount when navigating the turbulent waters of hurt and conflict, especially when the source of that pain is a woman you care about. The instinct to react impulsively to mirror the pain inflicted or to lash out in anger is a natural human response. However, acting on these impulses often exacerbates the situation, leading to further hurt and misunderstanding. Emotional regulation therefore becomes the bridge between reactive behavior and constructive dialogue, allowing you to navigate the situation with clarity and composure. Prioritizing emotional regulation begins with acknowledging the intensity of your feelings without judgment. It's okay to feel anger, sadness, or betrayal. Suppressing these emotions is not only unhealthy, but also counterproductive. The goal is not to eliminate these feelings, but to manage them effectively. This involves recognizing the triggers that escalate your emotional state and developing strategies to mitigate their impact. One effective strategy is to create space between the triggering event and your response. This might involve taking a few deep breaths, stepping away from the situation, or engaging in a calming activity such as listening to music or going for a walk. This pause allows your emotional intensity to subside, providing you with the clarity needed to respond thoughtfully. Self-awareness plays a crucial role in emotional regulation. Understanding your emotional patterns and recognizing the signs of escalating anger or frustration allows you to intervene before your emotions overwhelm you. This might involve identifying physical cues, such as a racing heart or clenched fists, or recognizing cognitive cues, such as racing thoughts or negative self-talk. Developing healthy coping mechanisms is essential for managing intense emotions. This might involve practicing mindfulness or meditation, engaging in physical exercise, or journaling your thoughts and feelings. These activities can help you process your emotions constructively and prevent them from spiraling into destructive behaviors. It's also important to challenge negative thought patterns that contribute to emotional distress. This involves recognizing and reframing distorted or irrational thoughts that fuel anger or resentment. For example, instead of thinking, "She always does this to me," try to consider alternative explanations or perspectives. This can help you gain a more balanced and objective view of the situation. Emotional regulation also involves setting healthy boundaries. This means recognizing your limits and communicating them assertively. It's okay to say no to requests that you're not comfortable with, or to take a break from a conversation that's becoming too heated. Setting boundaries protects your emotional well-being and prevents you from being overwhelmed by the other person's emotions. Furthermore, emotional regulation requires empathy and compassion, both for yourself and for the other person. While it's important to acknowledge your own pain, it's also essential to recognize that the other person may be experiencing their own emotional distress. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it can help you approach the situation with greater understanding and compassion. Remember that everyone makes mistakes, and sometimes people act out of pain or misunderstand. By prioritizing emotional regulation, you can create a space for healing and reconciliation rather than perpetuating a cycle of hurt and resentment. Seeking mutual understanding transcends the immediate hurt and lays the groundwork for healing and reconciliation. It moves beyond the individual experience of pain and focuses on bridging the gap between two perspectives, fostering empathy and creating a shared space for dialogue. In the context of a relationship where hurt has occurred, particularly with a woman, the desire for retribution or simple vindication can be strong. However, true resolution lies not in proving who is right or wrong, but in understanding the underlying reasons for the conflict and finding a path forward that respects both parties' needs. Seeking mutual understanding begins with active listening. This is not merely hearing the other person's words, but truly engaging with their perspective, acknowledging their feelings, and validating their experience, even if you don't agree with it. It requires putting aside your own agenda and focusing on understanding their point of view. Ask open-ended questions that encourage them to elaborate on their thoughts and feelings. Paraphrase their statements to ensure you're grasping their meaning, and resist the urge to interrupt or formulate counter-arguments while they're speaking. This demonstrates genuine interest in their perspective and creates a safe space for open communication. Empathy is another crucial component of seeking mutual understanding. This involves putting yourself in the other person's shoes and trying to see the situation from their perspective. It requires recognizing that everyone has their own unique experiences, values, and beliefs, and that these factors can influence their behavior. It's important to remember that hurt often stems from misunderstanding or miscommunication rather than malicious intent. Open and honest communication is essential for fostering mutual understanding. This involves expressing your own feelings and needs clearly and respectfully, while also being receptive to the other person's perspective. It requires a willingness to be vulnerable and share your own experiences, even if they're difficult or painful. Avoid using accusatory language or placing blame, and focus on expressing how the other person's actions affected you. It's also important to recognize that seeking mutual understanding is not about finding a single truth or assigning blame. It's about acknowledging that both parties may have valid perspectives and that the truth often lies somewhere in between. This requires a willingness to compromise and find solutions that address both parties' needs. Sometimes, seeking mutual understanding involves acknowledging your own role in the conflict. This might involve apologizing for your own actions or words that contributed to the hurt. It requires humility and a willingness to take responsibility for your own behavior. It is also important to know when an understanding may not be possible. Some situations require a level of understanding that is not achievable, or the other party is not willing to participate in a healthy dialogue. In such cases, seeking understanding becomes a personal process and requires understanding your own needs and creating boundaries that protect your well-being. Finally, seeking mutual understanding requires patience and persistence. It's a process that takes time and effort, and there may be setbacks along the way. However, the rewards of fostering mutual understanding are significant, including stronger relationships, greater empathy, and a deeper sense of connection. In essence, navigating the complexities of hurt, particularly when it stems from a relationship with a woman, requires a shift from reactive impulses to proactive, constructive engagement. Rather than seeking to confuse or retaliate, the path to resolution lies in prioritizing healthy communication, regulating our own emotional responses, and striving for mutual understanding. This involves articulating our feelings with clarity and respect, managing our emotional triggers, and actively listening to and empathizing with the other person's perspective. It's about recognizing that true resolution isn't about assigning blame, but about building bridges of understanding and finding a path forward that honors both parties' needs. By embracing these principles, we can transform potentially destructive conflicts into opportunities for growth, healing, and stronger, more resilient relationships. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope this discussion has provided valuable insights into navigating challenging interpersonal situations with grace and understanding.